I am a hypocrite. This is what I told myself as I lie awake in bed once again at 3 o'clock in the morning, unable to sleep. At the time, I was a pediatric sleep consultant and would tell parents every single day that sleep should be a priority because it is what is best for your mental and physical health. But yeah, I wasn't sleeping myself. So I decided to take my own advice and enlist the help of a professional because let's face it, I was not showing up as my best self. I was exhausted, had a hard time thinking straight, being creative, problem solving, exercising, being patient with my family and with myself. So I worked with an adult sleep coach, and she and I worked a lot on my sleep hygiene. I wasn't watching television before bed, put away my phone. I had this lovely bedtime routine. I was meditating every single day, but I still wasn't getting enough sleep. So that's when I found another sleep coach who specialized in functional diagnostic nutrition. And she explained to me that sleep isn't just mental, but also physical. So we ran 5 functional lab tests and discovered that I had a parasite in my gut, tons of gut dysfunction and dysbiosis, as well as hormonal imbalances and mineral deficiencies. We worked together for about 4 months to address all these issues. And at the end of the day, I was sleeping better than I had ever slept before. I was sleeping so well that I wasn't even thinking about sleep anymore. So, this whole experience inspired me to become an adult sleep coach as well as get my certification in functional diagnostic nutrition. So, it has now become my life's work and mission to educate people that sleep issues aren't just mental. Yes, that is a big piece, but also physical. Because typically, what causes sleep issues is stress. And stress can also cause physical dysfunction. And with sleep issues comes more stress and more physical dysfunction. So you could be meditating your butt off every day and as zen as a monk, but still not sleep if you don't address the hidden physical stressors and imbalances. So this is a list of some of the main sleep sabotagers I find in my clients when I run functional lab tests. But today I want to focus on the first two because these two are the most important sleep sabotagers to address. And plus, I just don't have time to go through it all. So we're going to start there, and it's going to be a really good start. So let's talk a little bit about gut health. A healthy gut is so important for healthy sleep for a couple reasons. So first, our neurotransmitters that help us to sleep, like serotonin, which is converted into melatonin. Did you know 70% of melatonin is actually produced in your gut? Also, GABA is produced in your stomach. So it's really important that you have a healthy gut so you can produce adequate amounts of these neurotransmitters and hormones. Also, there is a cord, the vagus nerve, that runs from your stomach to your brain, and there's a two-way communication path. So if something is amiss in your stomach, that is going to tell your nervous system that there's danger. And as a result, that's going to kick in the fight or flight reflex, and your body then is going to be producing cortisol, which is the alert hormone, which is, I like to call the anti-sleep hormone. You need plenty of cortisol during the day, but you just don't want excessive amounts. And gut dysfunction can lead to that because of that two-way communication path. Also, as it goes without saying, our stomachs, that's where we absorb the nutrients from our foods. So if you have issues with your gut health, that could lead to deficiencies in important minerals and vitamins that are needed for good sleep. So now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some conditions that I see with my clients when it comes to their gut health. So the first being gut dysbiosis. So our stomach is comprised of a microbiome. It's an environment that contains trillions of little microorganisms. So there is beneficial bacteria, opportunistic bacteria, so good and bad bacteria. There's yeast. All these things should be there, but they should be in balance. You can also have parasites or viruses. And it's really important that there's balance in your stomach so that your body doesn't become inflamed. If there's more bad bacteria versus good bacteria, your body is constantly fighting the bad bacteria and your immune system is activated and inflammation is activated. And as a result, your body's going to produce cortisol because cortisol brings down inflammation. Also, the bacteria in your stomach is responsible for digestion of your food. And it can be really easy for your gut microflora to be thrown off due to medications that we take, pesticides in our food, even stress and sleepless nights. Research shows that after one bad night of sleep, the composition of your microflora actually changes. The other thing I see a lot in my clients is leaky gut. So this is when the lining of your small intestine, which the purpose of the lining is to prevent bad stuff from getting into your bloodstream. It's when the lining begins to degrade, for lack of a better term. So the lining is comprised of these epithelial cells that are closely packed together. And on these little cells are little fingers called microvilli, which help our body to absorb nutrients from our foods. So what can happen is if you consume pesticides, if you have food allergies or sensitivities, or if you're taking antibiotics, and by the way, antibiotics can result in dysbiosis, what happens is these mucosal cells that prevent the bad stuff from getting into your bloodstream, they begin to spread out because your immune system is under your bloodstream. And when there's a trigger of something that shouldn't be in your stomach, the cells have to start to widen so that the immune components get into the lumen of your gut. And if this happens enough, then the cells continue to stay spread open, and then big particles that aren't supposed to be in your bloodstream start to enter your bloodstream and cause just a stronger immune response. And it can start to trigger foods that are good for you, like broccoli. Your body may start to tag those as antigens because they're not supposed to be in your bloodstream. And then when your body consumes broccoli, which is good for you, your body then has an immune response. So as a result, this leaky gut can cause inflammation and cortisol, as well as, issues with the digestion of the nutrients from your foods because the microvilli start to become eroded. Another issue I see with my clients, and this is something I had myself, are parasites. So parasites could get into our stomachs through the water we consume and the foods that we eat. And our bodies know that they're not supposed to be there. And so just like with having too much bad bacteria, this is going to trigger an immune response and cortisol. And these parasites, they're typically most active at nights. And so a lot of times what I see in my clients who have parasites is that their nighttime cortisol levels are high because of the extra activity of the parasites at that time. So what are you going to do to keep your gut healthy? So first, you should really focus on eating unprocessed foods. So whole foods. Shop the perimeter of the grocery store. And if you can, try to eat mostly organic. I know that it's really expensive. So one thing you can do is go to the Environmental Working Group's website. They are a non-for-profit. What they provide on their website is a list of foods that you should stay away from when it comes to conventional because they have a lot of pesticides in them. They also have a list called the Clean 15, which will tell you which foods are safe to buy conventional. Also, take a probiotic. You want to make sure that the probiotic has more than 1 billion little microbes in it. And if you're going to take a probiotic, also take a prebiotic too, because a prebiotic is like fertilizer for the probiotic. The prebiotics are actually food for probiotics. And you can also eat these foods. It's always best to get what your body needs through whole foods. So foods that are fermented contain probiotics. So these include yogurt, kombucha, sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir. And then in terms of prebiotic foods, those foods include garlic, onions, and leeks. And last but not least, and I know my face is kind of covering this, take a GI map. So this is the test that I run for my clients. It's a stool test. It's a PCR test. So it's going to tell us, what genes are present in your stool. And it lists all of the different strains of good bacteria and bad bacteria and their concentration. So we know that, so we can tell if they're in balance and if we need to eradicate some of the bad stuff. And this test is also going to tell us if you have viruses and parasites, which can be eradicated through botanical supplements. You can also go to your doctor too for prescription. Also, the GI map has markers of general gut dysfunction. So it tells us a wealth of information. I highly recommend, if you're working with an integrative medical provider, functional medicine doctor, a nutritionist, someone like me who has a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner certification, to ask to run this test. It could be really, really helpful when it comes to your sleep. All right, so another common thing I see with my clients is cortisol dysregulation. So as I mentioned before, cortisol is the alert hormone. We want to have cortisol in our system during the day because it keeps us awake. And we want our bodies to produce cortisol when we're exposed to stress because it's going to allow us to have a strong and fast reaction. The problem is that in today's modern society, we're exposed to a ton of stress. So our bodies typically produce a ton of cortisol during the day, especially if we have stressful jobs, if we're parents, if we have relationship issues, if we moved, if we suffered a divorce or changed jobs. All these things can result in high levels of stress and cortisol. And usually when we're going through a stressful period in our life, we feel pretty good because the cortisol is the stimulant and we're operating in what we call the acute phase, where we have high amounts of cortisol. And we actually want our bodies to produce high amounts of cortisol when we're under a lot of stress. It means that our adrenals, those are the glands that produce cortisol, are working appropriately. The problem is if you don't alleviate the stress and go back to this homeostasis phase of normal cortisol production, and this is where people are when everything's going well in their life, they have a good marriage, a good job, or they don't have to be married, but just relationships are going well in their life. They're happy and healthy. They're feeling good. They're going to be in adaptation. Well, if you don't go back in adaptation, you spend too much time in this acute phase where you're under a lot of stress, your body begins to break down because cortisol is catabolic and your body has nothing left to give to cortisol. Also, there's a negative feedback loop where your body's like, whoa, there's way too much cortisol in my system for way too long. I'm going to shut down and stop producing cortisol. And so as a result, you go into what's called this compensatory phase where you're still under a lot of stress, but your body can't keep up. So you're not producing enough cortisol to counteract the stress. And this is when people typically start to see issues like insomnia. And then if it goes on for too long, then they enter what we call the exhaustive phase, where their body's producing suboptimal levels of cortisol. And their bodies then will start to produce adrenaline instead to give itself energy. And a lot of my clients come to me in either this compensatory or exhaustive phase. And what we'll see is either a pattern of cortisol that's not normal, because what we should be seeing is that cortisol should rise in the morning and then fall throughout the day and be low at night. So with some of my clients who are in this compensatory phase, maybe they have really high cortisol during the day. It goes down really low in the afternoon and then goes back up in the evening, which causes sleep issues. Or if they're in the exhaustive phase, their body's just not producing enough cortisol at all. It's producing suboptimal levels. And we're able to fix this with diet, rest, stress alleviation techniques, and supplements. So the other bad thing about demanding a lot of cortisol from your system is that it can start to lead to sex hormone imbalances, because all of our steroid hormones, cortisol, progesterone, testosterone, estrogen, come from cholesterol and pregnenolone. And we only have so much pregnenolone to go around. And if cortisol is always demanding pregnenolone, then our other sex hormones can start to become imbalanced. And that can also lead to sleep issues as well. That's why with all of my clients, we take a Dutch test, and the Dutch test shows us how much cortisol your body's producing through different points of the day. Also, will let us know the status of your sex hormones and a lot more information. So if you suspect that your sleep issues are hormonal related, I would definitely ask your medical provider to run a cortisol test, if not the Dutch test, to give us a complete picture of both your cortisol and your sex hormones. So ways that you can keep your hormones balanced would be, number one, to manage mental stress and try to do this on a daily basis. What I like to do myself is ask, what do I need today to feel good? Do I need to meditate? Do I need to do some deep breathing? Do I need to go for a walk? Do I need to connect with a friend? Do I need to spend time in nature? So every day, try to do things that are going to help to counteract stress and bring down those cortisol levels. Also, eliminate physical stressors. So say, you have a bad back, that's going to cause extra cortisol production. So go see a chiropractor, get a massage. Also, gut dysfunction is a hidden physical stressor, like I said before, that can lead to excessive amounts of cortisol. Another really easy thing to do is in the morning is to go outside and get some light exposure, because that's going to trigger a nice healthy spike of cortisol. That way your cortisol levels will start to plummet throughout the day. Our body is actually looking for that signal from the sun to know that it needs to start producing cortisol. Also, doing this is going to help your body to produce melatonin about 12 hours later. Eat a blood sugar-friendly breakfast. Make sure when you eat breakfast that you're including fat and protein to maintain your blood sugar, because whenever your blood sugar plummets, your body's going to produce cortisol to bring it back up. So as you can see, there are a ton of hidden sleep sabotagers. So although I do encourage you to do all the things they tell you, to stay off your phone, to meditate, to get out of bed in the middle of the night if you wake up, to disassociate your bed with being awake and being stressed. All those things are really important. But if you're doing those things and you're not seeing results, then you should start looking at the physical function of your body, because it's likely been thrown off from the stress and sleepless nights. And if you don't resolve that, you're just going to be spinning your wheels. So I hope that this has shed light on the complexity of sleep, that it's not just mental, but physical too. Like I said, I encourage you to seek out somebody that can help you address the physical dysfunction. And of course, I would love to work with you if that's something that you're interested in. If so, we can set up a free discovery call through my website, Kelly Murray Adult Sleep. Again, I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you are on your way to getting good sleep, because you deserve it in order to feel and be your best.